Imagine, if you will, you're a football club in the early noughties going through some financial hardships. Your biggest asset is your stadium, which you own the leasehold of. Your team is bought, the club and the ground, by a businessman and his son, who sells the ground to a fan-owned club that would eventually transform it into a Football League stadium. That, in a nutshell, is Kingstonian Football Club and their former stadium, Kingsmeadow. So how did this happen? Kingstonian were once a bit of a power in non-league football. They finished 5th in the conference, now the National League, and were knocking on the door of the Football League in 2000. They also reached the FA Cup 4th round in 2001. The club has a sizable trophy cabinet, having won back-to-back FA trophies in the 98-99 season and the 99-2000 season, and 13 Surrey Senior Cup titles and an FA Amateur Cup in 1933. They're also 3-time winners of the Isthmian League. The club moved to Kingsmeadow in 1989, having sold their previous stadium, Richmond Road, for housing development. However, their success at the end of the last millennium put the club into financial difficulties, and the club entered administration and would lose the lease from the local council in October of 2001. The club was bought by property developer Rajesh Khosla, who bought the club for an estimated £445,000. He would then go on to sell the leasehold of the ground, which he had purchased with the club, for £2.4 million, making a profit of £2 million on the sale of the 110-year lease on Kingsmeadow. That club was AFC Wimbledon. AFC Wimbledon had been subtenants at the ground since their founding in 2002, and now AFC Wimbledon, owning the stadium, would upgrade it and upkeep it and bring it in line with regulations for the Football League, something that wasn't far off, as Kingstonian had been knocking on the door of Division 3, now League 2. Kingstonian secured a 25-year lease on the ground from AFC Wimbledon, which was favourable and was due to come to an end in 2028. But as we all know, the Kingsmeadow was only a temporary home for AFC Wimbledon as they returned to their spiritual home, Plough Lane, which is their new stadium, which was built on the old Wimbledon Stadium, which was a greyhound speedway and banger car racing venue near enough to the site of the original Wimbledon's Plough Lane. As a result of AFC Wimbledon's stadium move and needing to raise a bit of money for their new ground, they sold the leasehold to Chelsea Football Club, the contracts for which were exchanged in 2016, and Chelsea have used the Kingsmeadow as a home ground for their women's and youth development team since 2017, when they moved in, changing the aesthetics of the ground to make it look a bit more Chelsea. However, Chelsea, as a part of the purchase, did not uphold the tenancy agreement with Kingstonian that they had with AFC Wimbledon, which was their right as they are now the landlord. Since then, Kingstonian has moved around, first ground sharing with Leatherhead from 2017 to 2018, then Corinthian Casuals from 2018 to 2022, then Mitcham United's Imperial Fields from 2022 to 2024. They now play, since the start of the current season, the 24-25 season, at Rains Park Vale's Prince George's Playing Field, which is about 40 minutes away from Kingston by bus. There is an article by the newspaper, which I'll link below for anyone to read. They interview 2 Kingstonian supporters, and they claim that the stadium is barely used and that the club were facing financial oblivion. The article was published at the back end of the 23-24 season. In it, they interview 2 supporters, and that they argue that Chelsea women's team play their biggest matches at Stamford Bridge, and the WSL normally play on a Sunday, which leaves the ground free on Saturday to be used by Kingstonian. Whilst it would be a potentially nice story, and as they point out in the article, good PR for Chelsea to let Kingstonian play at their old stadium and return to the borough of Kingston, it's unlikely to happen. And whilst we're trying to be neutral and not paint Chelsea as the villains of this story, because to be fair to them, they bought a ground that was for sale, and that kind of sporting real estate is being decimated in Greater London. Just ask any supporter of the professional London rugby clubs that have hit the wall. A Chelsea fan would presumably say, why should their women's team, a professional team, play on a pitch being torn up in the past 24 hours for an 8th-tier football club that wouldn't sell out the ground? From a Kingstonian fan's point of view, and this is hyperbole, they might say they had a deal in place. They weren't involved or privy to the sale of the ground from AFC Wimbledon to Chelsea, although they did sell the ground to the Dons in the first place, and that they would like to have seen Chelsea uphold or honour the deal that they made with AFC Wimbledon. Although, as we've stated previously, Chelsea as a new landlord don't have to honour any agreement that was made previously. Kingstonian are currently in the Isthmian League South Central Division. That's 2 leagues below the National League South and 3 away from the former conference, now National League, that they were once vying for promotion from into the Football League. Now, we've tried to keep this as neutral as possible, but what do you think? Put your head above the parapet, as we haven't. Would you like to see Kingstonian get back to Kingston, get their ground back, or move to a new ground in the borough of Kingston? Or do you see the alternate point of view that they sold their ground and because of it, a situation like this was always destined to happen? You might also ask what the club did with the £2 million profit that the owner made from the sale of the 110-year lease to AFC Wimbledon. I'm predicting the club didn't see any of that money. Leave your thoughts below and thank you for watching.